Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, a senior counsel for Global Affairs, the ACLJ, has got a new piece up going at ACLJ.org this afternoon. It's called "We Can No Longer Ignore Rising Crime in America." Secretary Pompeo, thanks for joining us. We know that this is not a normal summer spike, as the administration may try to spin it. This is something that we've seen over the last year and a half as people are dealing with the pandemic, the defund the police movements. It's starting to show what those policies mean when you don't support policing in communities and you allow your border to go out of control and people aren't back to work.
Jordan, you did a very nice job there connecting all the various strains that have led to this increase in violence. It is not a summer spike. This is going to continue to be a problem. And you're right, not just in our biggest cities, but I was in my home state of Kansas now just a few weeks back talking to some of the senior police officers. They can't get people to sign up. People are retiring. Their recruitment classes are smaller. When you denigrate the very people who are charged with keeping public safety, protecting each and every one of us in our homes, you drive this up. You will find fewer people willing to take the risk to actually do the hard work to defend and secure freedom all across America when you denigrate these people. And then the second thing is you have to impose real costs. The administration is beginning to do things that feel like catch and release, right? No longer actually processing these claims against people who are conducting violent crime. This is happening all across America. It will put families at increased risk, and we can't allow this to continue to happen.
Mike, you point out in your piece that 25 major cities in the United States have already started their significant cuts or proposing major cuts in police budgets. But I was in an area of North Carolina that is a beautiful area of the state of North Carolina, Asheville, North Carolina, where they had a lot of talk about the cutting the police and dismantling the police, and crime has increased across the country. And these are not major cities; these are tourist destinations. So this anti-police move that the left is pushing is having real consequences. And by the way, those consequences, Mike, are on Republicans, Democrats, independents, people not involved, citizens, people, non-citizens. If you're there, you could be subject to the violence.
Jay, you know this. It happens to me all the time. I have friends call me and say, Mike, I'm thinking about traveling to some city. It used to be they would call me, I'm traveling to some city around the world. Do you think it's safe to go there? They thought I might have some special insights. Now they're asking if I travel to New York or to Washington, D.C. or to North Carolina, wherever it may be, is it going to be safe? They're seeing the images on TV. We've seen this before in America. We've seen where the left has attacked those who are trying to defend and secure freedom, and we can't permit this to continue to happen. People, just like they're rising up about what's happening in our schools, they need to rise up. And, Jay, we always know this too. The communities most adversely impacted are the communities with the least resources.
Right.
So we'll see highlighted pictures from a particularly nice place, but in the end, this violence and the drugs and the homelessness always come to attack the families who can least afford this violence. We those of us who are conservative, believe in property rights and the protection of liberty and life, we need to make sure that we are doing all the work we need to protect everyone and in all ways, even in those difficult communities.
These are the most vulnerable. You're right. This most vulnerable people in our society are often the victims of these, and it's tragic. And at the inner cities that have enough trouble as it is, this just seems to complicate it worse.
Well, it's almost like defund the police. The idea, and Secretary Pompeo, to some extent, those advocates of that, while they might not have actually, some places put this into practice, some didn't. But the idea what you were talking about is the idea that people don't want to take those positions anymore. It was already putting your life in jeopardy to protect your fellow citizens, but that we've now demonized that position. And so whether you actually defund the police or not, if the police had the money to hire but can't find people, it works the same way, because you have taken out a pool of people who say, you know what, I'm not going to deal with the regular crime, and also having no support from the city, the state, the community.
Yeah, Jordan, that's right. Look, your idea of connecting this is right. When you begin to say that the Second Amendment doesn't permit people to bear arms, when you defund the police, when you start attacking faith communities as well, who have always been in some of these most vulnerable populations, right? Their church, their place that their community gathers has always been a place of safety and haven. When you begin to undermine that and pull out these essential pins. You are systemically building the conditions for violence and crime. You're rewarding it. Young kids will see that this may be their only way to take care of themselves, is to join a gang or become part of a crime group. These are the things that create the conditions that are difficult to get back from. When we need mayors, county commissioners, city leaders all across America, even in these large urban places that have historically elected Democrats, to understand that the people are being harmed by this violence, and the idea that you're going to undermine law enforcement is cataclysmically dangerous for these most vulnerable populations.
Mike, we were talking earlier in the broadcast about the situation on the border, which is record numbers of illegal immigration right now, and the number of encounters is breathtaking. But as you're talking about crime, this whole situation on the border does not help our crime situation in the United States. It hurts it.
Of course. And it's not just in Texas, Arizona, and California. You all have talked about this, and the ACLJ's done good work on this as well. Right? They are transporting these people all across America. They're dropping them into communities with which they are not familiar. And it's not just the virus that they may be carrying. They may have come from backgrounds where violence was the norm. And so the risk of increased crime is dramatic.
Yeah, I also, as we look at this, we try to look at not just here's the problem, but point to solutions. And you've run the CIA. You were our Secretary of State. You've been a member of the United States Congress. I mean, you know solutions. As we look at the crime situation, and it's everything from the kind of the attitude going on politically. What do you think is the number one priority that needs to be put in place to curb this?
We need to make sure that our law enforcement officers are supported, and that our district attorneys, the prosecutors around this country, are empowered, and that we find the tools, the judicial and resources to make sure that these criminals aren't being released. They're not being returned to the streets. The recidivism rates have to go down, and we need to make sure that we are actually prosecuting these criminals to the full extent of the law, such that they are not permitted to prey on the most vulnerable.
Which goes back to basically the idea that the criminal justice system needs also to not only prevent crime, but be a deterrent from future crimes. Mike, it's really criminal justice 101.
It truly is. There's not an original thought here. By the way, we in America know how to do this. We've been in this place before, and Democrat administrations allowed our cities to run wild. We've been in this place before. We know how to get back from this. It is a deterrence model and a support model in these most vulnerable communities that can drive down crime and make sure that we are all protected.
I want people to listen to this. We just got this audio because Cori Bush, she's part of the squad, a congresswoman from Missouri. She's got a lot of security, but she supports defund the police. She's trying to explain away now. I'm not against anybody having security, members of Congress, elected officials, former federal officials, current. But at the same time, if you're calling for defund the police, that is kind of saying it's one thing for me and one thing for everybody else. Take a listen to how she tries to explain this away. Just happened.
I'm going to make sure I have security because I know I have had attempts on my life and I have too much work to do. There are too many people that need help right now for me to allow that. So if I end up spending $200,000, if I spend $10 more on it, you know what? I get to be here to do the work. So suck it up, and defunding the police has to happen. We need to defund the police and put that money into social safety nets.
Oh, okay. Mike, this is where I think we're living in the land of the absurd. I have no problem with her spending $200,000 or $300,000, whatever she needs to for security. You have security. We have security. We all have security if you're in a profile position. Okay, that's part of it. But to then tell the local cities and communities, Mike, they can't have security? Defund the police? Really?
Jay, I suppose she would suggest a social program to keep her safe. That would be the logical corollary to her statement. That's absurd. It's ridiculous. I hope the American people can hear that and understand that is hypocrisy at the highest order, and more importantly, dangerous.
Thank you, Secretary Pay. You've got the new pieces up at aclj.org. It'll be up this afternoon.